Hey everyone, welcome. Feel free to unmute yourselves if you would like. You don't have to. Just an FYI, this session is being recorded. So you should see the little record button up at the top.
I'm in an office now. Hello. Where I don't have, normally I'm in my cubicle where I have to wear my mask, and it's so hard to wear that mask all day.
It's stifling, Patty.
It is. Hi,
Yes.
Lisa. How are you? So I'm feeling.
I'm good. How is everyone?
I'm just feeling a little bit of freedom. Yes. How is everybody? It's so. I'm feeling a little bit of fatigue. It's been, too long, but holding on.
Yeah.
Well, spring is here. Get out and get some sun and some vitamin D
Yeah.
and C.
So I want to say, for anybody who's been doing this a while, you can kind of zone out for the first half an hour. I'm kind of going over kind of an overview of things, and then I'm going to have a little 5-minute break, I think, and then I'm going to just go over stats for 2020 and just talk about a few little things. And then, hi, Kristen. And then I'm going to have Kristen Price from Overdrive take over. So, it is what it is. But if you have any questions, basic questions can be asked at the end of the beginner thing. And then, or if not, we can just hold out until the end. But it's nice to see everybody, and I hope everybody's doing okay.
So Patty, if it's okay, we'll give it just a couple more minutes.
Sure.
I had one person not receive the link this morning, so I wonder if I'll get a couple of emails about that.
Hi, David. It's nice to see you. And I frankly understand if you're not on. I totally get it.
So we'll give it just one more moment, but as people come in, just a friendly reminder. Oh, first of all, good morning. But also a friendly reminder that this session is being recorded. It will be placed on the RCLS YouTube page. I'll be sending out a link to that page following this session as soon as the video has been processed and everything. I know we have some poor weather in the area. If you have any technical difficulties, feel free to leave, come back in. It will not be disruptive at all. I will be monitoring the chat as Patty is sharing her screen. So if you have any questions along the way, feel free to send me a message via chat, or you can send me an email directly. I also have my phone next to me, so you can also call my office. It's not a problem.
Yeah, I hope that I don't have the bad weather.
Knock on wood. So if you require a certificate of attendance or a CE certificate, I'll be sending out an email again following this session. Just email me back and I will issue you that certificate. It is 10:03. Patty, are you ready to get started?
Yeah, I'm just going to say, because I know there are some people that have been doing this a while. Hi, Brian Jennings. So if I was telling people in the beginning that the first half an hour, I'm kind of going to just do an overview. So if you want to zone out for that a little bit, you can. But if you want to stay on, feel free to just, if I don't see your face, totally understand. And if you have questions, so I'm just going to kind of give a brief overview for people who are new to Overdrive, and just a few updates as far as the system goes. And then So the first half hour, I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to give it over to Kristen. So I've already gone into my 4 minutes, so I'm going to start sharing my screen. If I can. Oh, somebody wants to be admitted. Somebody wants to be admitted, Jen. Did you see that?
Yep, I'll take care of that. You don't have to worry.
Okay, so welcome. My name is Patty Sussman. For those who don't know me, I work at the Newburgh Library, Newburgh Free Library, and we are the central library for the RCLS system. So today we're going to go over an overview and a history. I usually do this at the beginning of each of these because I offer them twice a year. Basics of ordering, the difference between system and advantage reports, basic questions about ordering, and then I'm going to break for 5 minutes, and then I'm just going to talk about stats for 2020 for the system, some additional news, and then I'm going to hand it over to Kristen. So that's the start of it. So just to give you a brief overview, the overdrive contract was signed in 2005 and was made available to staff mid-year and was officially launched in January 2006. RCLS started ordering eContent for overdrive starting in 2006. In 2015, the funding pool, or RCLS consortium, started purchasing of materials. That's the e-pool. After that period, the eContent circulation has grown by 65%. Some libraries have seen a growth of over 100%. It all started with about 400 individual items and 640 copies overall. We now have over 37,000 individual items and over 83,000 copies overall. This includes advantage titles that are purchased by your libraries. So there's two types of e-content ordering. There's the e-pool, which is a group of libraries. There's about 8 to 10 of us that order for the system. And then there's Overdrive Advantage Plus. And there's two different accounts. It can be very confusing. So if your account login has the ADV in the login, you are ordering for your library, AKA Advantage Plus. System ePool accounts have the LIB in the login, as opposed to that ADV extension. So sometimes there's confusion. You think that you're ordering for the system and you've actually put it in the other account. So just, that's just something to know. If you, so system ePool, I honestly feel that it needs to be, maybe we need to look it over. I mean, we've been doing this since 2015. I mean, I love that. I love the libraries that are participating, but I know there's some others that might want to participate. I don't know if any libraries want to step out or step in. I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know if that's a system services question or what, but I'm just putting that out there. But I know sometimes other libraries want to participate in that, but realize when you're ordering for the ePool, you're ordering for the consortia. You're not ordering for your library. You're trying to reduce the number of holds down. You're ordering titles that people want for the system. So the system ePool. So my own experience as a selector started in 2010 when I started ordering audiobooks for the library system. In 2015, I also started ordering fiction ebooks and audiobooks for adults. Joanna Goldfarb from RCLS took over for Randy, and she orders the juvenile and young adult material for the system ePool. And recently Jen Park has started ordering the audiobooks for the system ePool. Thank you, Jen. And I also order the adult nonfiction with separate central CBA funds. This was cut from the budget with pandemic budget cuts and was recently added back into the system as of the end of February. So there's 15,000. So I apologize, Brian, but if you, I'm thinking of Brian Jennings when I think about that because he had a nonfiction cart, but maybe, you know, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that later. But if there's any nonfiction titles that you want, it has to be adult fiction, adult nonfiction that you want purchased for your library, and you know you don't have the funds or whatever. Reach out to me. Send me an email.
So Patty, clarification on that.
Yeah.
So last year or maybe the year before, I can't remember. Basically, you introduced some ePool nonfiction.
Yes, because last year we introduced it because our funds were cut, so we didn't have the funds. The central library funds were cut, and so we said you could order. I mean, and you still can if you want to, but it's coming. If you want to make it part of your Advantage Plus, you still can order nonfiction. I don't have a problem with it, but we have the funds to order it. So if you want to just put at the end suggestion or just send it to me, hey Patty, I made a card in nonfiction, and then I'll put it into my nonfiction. Within the last 2 years, I mean, there was so much stuff with the elections and stuff that really a lot of the nonfiction titles were going out. I mean, maybe it'll slow down a little bit, but I mean, if there's areas of the collection that you feel, need to be beefed up, obviously, I mean, right now, I just feel like I have to do it basically based on demand and what people want. But if there's certain areas of the collection that, that we should have, that we don't have, as far as nonfiction goes, send me a list of titles if you want to, and I'll try and get them, but it has to be adult. That's part of the CBA thing, is it has to be adult nonfiction. Does that clarify your question, Brian?
I just want to know whether or not we should make nonfiction ePool cards or not. Or it's more like informal, like just if there's something you really think the system should have, just email Patty, sort of a thing.
You can make a cart and just say, hey, Patty, I made a cart.
Oh, that's easier for you to process it in that way.
Yeah.
But it's not, it's separate from ePool.
Yeah, I mean, so you can use, I mean, if you wanted to use, you can. I mean, I guess you can, but I would probably transfer it into CBA money, because that way, you could use it for other things.
Right. Okay. So no
you.
nonfiction in ePool. It's more of an informal thing with you and communicate with you.
Yeah. If I don't have the funds, I'll let you know. So then you can start ordering it, start ordering again.
And that's starting July 1?
No, it actually, we got, as of the last system services, I think at the end of February, it just happened. So I should have, that's why I wanted to apologize to you, because I should have transferred that to me, that nonfiction cart you had.
Oh.
But it's okay. I mean, we'll talk about that later if you want.
Yeah, I'll just reach out to you.
Okay.
Or maybe later in the meeting, we could talk about it. Okay.
Okay. So we used to have Advantage ordering, and those titles used to be transferred from libraries every 6 months. And the problem was that a lot of the titles that were being transferred over were already expired by the time they transferred over. Now we have something called Advantage Plus ordering, and that's with that ADV extension, which you get these accounts from Jerry at the system. So you order eContent for your library. Your patrons always have priority. and it's shared to the system. Your patrons always still have priority. So I just want to clarify something. So when you're ordering Advantage Plus material, it's yours exclusively for like a week if you order on a Monday. So so if you order on a Friday, it still transfers over on a Monday, but it doesn't, it still is your patrons always have priority. So just realize that. So that's why patrons move up and down the hold list depending upon how you've ordered, what they're requesting. So ePool or consortia is a shared collection. Like libraries have been doing since the beginning of time, we share our resources for the greater good. While I'm here, if anyone doesn't subscribe to it yet, there's 2 relevant listservs, ePool, basically the selectors for the consortia, and eContent for people who order that material in general. If you want to subscribe to these, please email Martha Sullivan at RCLS. The consortia ordering typically takes place on the 1st and the 15th of the month. I mean, I'll try and send out the order, and then it has to be okayed by Grace, and then it's a matter of processing by Tracy's. Sometimes she has payroll or things like that, and you'll be like, hey, my card is still sitting here. Why? I just want to let you know what the process is, that once it gets to RCLS, sometimes there's things that hold it up there too. If you order for the consortia, you can't have any pre-orders. There can't be any orders that are published after that date. So try and clean up your card appropriately. There is also a hold order that is placed on the 21st. So I just wanted to just say this a little bit. I think it's helpful for the business office. Before we get started with ordering cards, please order your cards with the naming protocol if you can, so it's easier for the business office. We've gotten kind of sloppy with it, and it's a good reminder for everyone to try and use the same name protocol. So here's abbreviations to know. AF is adult fiction, NF nonfiction, AUD is audiobooks, JUV is youth services, and that includes YA. ADV is for Advantage orders. Pool is for orders from the Central Library, or Joanna and Jen from RCLS for the consortia. So here are some examples, just to give you an idea. I just think it's helpful for the accounting. So for people who haven't ordered before, there's different access types for the things that you can order from Overdrive. There's one copy, one user, and that's those are typically more expensive things. It used to be that a lot more of our things were one copy, one user, and then things started to go to metered access, which causes our problems with things that are expired. So metered access is by either time or checkouts, or whichever comes first. You'll see, sometimes it's 26 checkouts. I think that there used to be a time where people were like horrified of 26 checkouts, but now there's like, 20, you have it for 24 months, you have it for 12 months, and you have to decide what you want, and then those things expire. And so it's not like a library book where you have it and it's just like this thing that has 100 circs. You have to keep on buying it if the demand is there. There's also SU, which is simultaneous use. That's for magazines. And there's also a collection, which I'll talk about later. And then there's also cost per circ. I haven't used it that much, so if anybody's using that, maybe later we can talk about it, the cost per circ model. And that's for titles that maybe you think might not have a big interest, but there might be some people that are requesting it. And if it's available, is that you put it out as cost per circ and see, and then you just get charged per unit of people taking it out.
Patty, I just want to state a couple things that came through the chat. Kristen just said, just noting that there's often not a choice of lending models. These are set by the titles publishers.
Yes.
And there is a question, do we have to name carts when we order through Advantage for our library?
If you're still getting, I'm just saying, if you're still getting billed through aren't you still getting billed through RCLS? If you're not, I just think it's a nice, neat way to do it for accounting. I'm not, that used to be a way. I don't know if Tracy cares or if Stephen cares. I just think it's easy. It's easier for them.
Go ahead, Michelle.
Patty, I asked that question because I just pay with our credit card right
Oh,
away.
if you're doing it that way, then I wish we could do it that way. Good for you.
Okay, that's why I haven't been naming cards. I just buy, what I need and pay for it. Okay.
Yeah. Good for you.
Okay.
Advantage orders are directly billed to the library. It doesn't go through RCLS. So whatever naming convention helps you remember what that card is. If it's hold, if your initials or adult fiction, whatever it may be, that just helps you know kind of what content is in that cart. But Advantage orders are directly invoiced to you.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Kristen. I didn't know that because I'm always like, and my accounting people are sticklers too. So it's just, it's good to know the difference. Okay. So I was just going to go over 2 reports. Please tell me if I don't have to go over this, because I won't, because but I was going to go over holds and title recommendations. Do people want me to do that? If you do, please say yes. If not, I won't.
Patty, it's Brian. I use title recommendations, so I know how it works. But I think if people aren't using that, it's really important for them to know how to retrieve that report.
Okay. Then let me, hold on a second. Sorry, now I'm losing it as I try and go. Okay, I'm going to go back to, so I still want to screen share. And I'm going to stop my.
Patty, if you want to share, not this current PowerPoint, but perhaps something from the internet, you're going to have to stop share and then reshare.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Haven't done this in a while. Okay. Can everybody see that?
Yep, thank you.
Okay, so I'm in my system-wide account, and so I'm going to go over to Insights. And I'm going to go into recommended titles. And I'm sorry, I have all of your faces and I'm trying to get rid of them because it's right as I'm, okay. So this tells me there's 30 screens of what people want, and this shows what people want. There's 17 recommendations for the Red Book, a Black thriller series. You can create a worksheet for this and download it to Excel. Some of these are pre-pub, so you can just go in and see. For Advantage, you can see it and it'll be for your, so this is a pre-order. So I can't do that. It's coming out on the 29th, good old James Patterson. And then, you know, so that's what you do is you can go in, see what people are asking for from your libraries.
Hey, Patty. I wonder if I can chime in.
Yes,
If you
please
go
chime
back,
in, Kristen.
Sure. So when you go to this page, you'll actually want to select the Run New Report button.
Yeah.
It'll open up whatever settings you had most recently. And this is where you can customize a few things. You can run the report by title or your branch, by month. You can customize that date frame by changing last to specific, and then you can put in calendar dates if you want to see last quarter or last month. And then you can also customize just for your branch. We do recommend leaving holdings as not in collection, just in case something was purchased by chance. It was already on your radar, but this is a really good tool to see maybe what your patrons are looking for that isn't already in your collection. So especially if you're doing local Advantage orders, we typically recommend limiting to just your patrons by opting into your branch, but you can customize the date here by changing last to specific, and you can put in calendar dates if that works best for you.
Yeah, I mean, this is my recent one. You know, I usually just look to see what we're missing from the last month or so. And this is, you know, what comes up. Thank you for chiming in, Kristen. Feel free to. And then also, I'm going to go back and then current holds. Hopefully it's spinning, it's loading.
So the nice one about this report is you have some options. So from your Advantage account, the ADV holds column is automatically going to represent your patrons. We're recognizing that from the login that you're using. Otherwise, you can go to Run New Report again and limit just to your branch. And then you'll notice that all holds and ADV holds are the same number. It is essentially looking at just your patrons' holds. But if you want to get a feel for where your patrons sit to the overall RCLS queue, what you can do is just leave all branches and then compare Advantage holds to all holds. Now, Patty's in the consortium collection, so it's looking at everyone. But if you are making one of those Advantage orders and kind of logging in locally, that ADV holds will automatically represent your patrons, and that's based on the login that you're using. But this is a great tool to see what your patrons are waiting on. And it does include full information, including, you know, how many copies are already in the collection, whether you already own one, things like street date or audience, if you're trying to fill some holds for juvenile or young adults. There's a lot of information here. So another good option too is if there's anything that you don't want to really see, you can hover over these columns and it'll actually provide a little drop down. So yeah, Patty, if you close out of that and then hover over, yep, until you get one of those little drop down arrows and click on that.
I'll just click, I'll click on,
click on the actual arrow.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Oh God, why is it doing
It's
that?
just thinking, hang on.
Okay.
Yep, and you can go to columns And then you can remove anything you maybe don't want to see. So if you have a smaller screen and you don't really care about the ISBN or things like that, you can remove anything here, and it'll kind of condense that. We'd rather give you the more information to make those collection development decisions. And then if there's anything that you don't care about seeing, you can kind of remove it there. It's also a good option here if you want to sort descending. So I usually recommend for Advantage orders, you're coming into this report, you can leave all branches, hover over that ADV holds column and sort descending. And then it'll bring the titles in the most demand amongst your patrons to the top of the list. And then you can look at some of those consortium owned or Advantage owned to see if it's going to make sense to maybe purchase an extra copy of those titles.
Is there a way to get this, to get an arrow up on top?
We have some development requests in for that. So if you actually scroll down a little bit further, I know, I think it comes down to just, there's a lot of information we're trying to show you. But yeah, I would like a scroll bar at the top as well.
I mean, I sometimes, could you, I just want to say from my standpoint, I know that most of you are, that a lot of you here are probably ordering for Advantage, but look at the consortia rate. Look at the consortia ratio too. I sometimes feel like we have lots of Advantage copies that sometimes sit after a while, you know, like that initial rush. And it just, I wish there was more of a balance. So Kristen, explain Advantage hold rank while we're at it, if you're here.
Sure. Yeah, Patty, if you want to scroll down just a little bit further.
Sure. So I can.
Yeah, and then use that one. Yep. So Advantage holds rank is a really good option. So that's going to show you where, when you're logged in with your Advantage account, where in the overall queue your first patron is. So that's really helpful to see, you know, maybe you only have 3 or 4 patrons waiting on a title, but the first person is number 72 on the list or something like that. That's another data point to consider when you're trying to say, hey, is it worth maybe adding an extra copy to this title? So beyond just ownership information and how many copies may be in the shared collection, or if you already have one, but actually looking where in the queue your patrons are, because I think that makes an impact too.
But what about, because this is a question for me, but what about if the consortia ratio is at 4 point whatever? I mean, I think that's a good ratio. And then I'm seeing that my Advantage rank is whatever. I mean, what should I go by?
Honestly, it's a preference. You guys know your budget and what you're willing. And I think sometimes it depends on the title. If you know that it might be something that maybe it's the next title in a series that is popular amongst your patrons or something like that, it's comparing a few of these data sets. So it's not only looking at the number of your patrons that are waiting, but also things like the price of the title, right? Maybe the street date. Is it something that was published 3 years ago or something like that? But also things like this Advantage holds rank or ratio. You know, maybe there's enough copies throughout everyone, you know, throughout the whole system, but your patrons are still going to wait, you know, potentially 4 months or something like that if, you know, they're number 100 out of 105 or something like that. So it's really, it depends. Collection development policies we put on the library. There is no right or wrong answer, unfortunately. It's your budget. It's how you want to address some of these. And that's why we provide you all of these data points so you can kind of compare and see what works best for your library, because there is no one size fits all.
Okay, thank you, Kristen. Okay, so that's kind of reports. So, and I just wanted to, while we're in overdrive, I just wanted to share, I'm going to go back to here.
Patty, there's a question in the chat. I don't know if you want to address questions after you go through this page or as they come up.
It depends on what the question is. If it's related to.
So the question is, when I log into Advantage, there isn't an all branches choice in that drop down. If we
Yeah,
want
I'll
to
handle
see-
that one, Mary.
Oh, good.
Actually, just check, hit the X next to your branch. So when there's none selected, it defaults to all branches. So if you go to run new report and you go to that drop down, just unselect whatever's selected, and then all branches will be the default. Perfect.
I was going to try and do it, but I'm sorry, I'm in the system one. I wish I could bring up both of them at the same time, but I can't. Because I think when it gives a clearer picture. So I just wanted to talk about, if you wanted to shop, please take advantage of the advanced search. This is for real newbies. You can search by keyword, you can search by ISBN if somebody's looking for something in particular. Like, so for instance, if I'm looking to see adult fiction, and street dates for the last 2 weeks, all prices. Let's say I wanted to limit it to 1 copy, 1 user. And I typically go to not in collection, just to see what. Oh my goodness, it's spinning.
Hey, Patty, it's Baron.
Yes.
Just a question. I was talking to Mary Page in the chat. I'm not sure if I correctly answered her question. She was wondering that if libraries are using their portion of the quarterly contribution to consortial purchasing to order through their ePool login, not using CBA funds, why is ordering ANF through their individual ePool cart an issue?
It's not. If that's what they want to order, that's not an issue. But I'm just saying that as central, I have the funds for it. So if you don't want to pay for it, I would put it towards this separate, 15,000 I have, so you could use it for something else.
Okay, so that's how I summarize it. Is basically you could do that, but you're effectively costing yourself fiction money by doing it.
Yeah. So does that answer your question, Mary Page?
Yes, thank you. I'm slow on the.
No, you're not.
No, I am, but I appreciate the explanations. Now I understand it a little better.
Yeah. So we were cut funds. Now we have them back, and who knows what'll happen tomorrow. So as of right now, we do have funds for it. So I'm going to move along a little bit. So
Patty, this
Yeah.
is Cheryl from Monticello. Just a quick question. I know I had the naming conventions for the files somewhere, but I cannot seem to locate it right now. Is there any chance you can either go over it or send something out that has that for all of us?
you know what? I didn't even have something for the longest time, but somebody sent me something. It's basic. It's pretty simple. It's just using your Monticello, what type of card it is, and just the date, and it. But as I look through the invoices, it seems like everybody's. When I look through the invoices for RCLS, sometimes it just seems like it's all over the place. So I just felt like it was just easier for them if there was a convention for it. So I think I have something, and I will look for it and send it to the eContent group. If
All
I
right.
can.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving along, because I want to give Kristen time too. So I'm just going to tell everybody, because I thought we'd be moving along more quickly, but that's fine because we've got good questions. I wanted to say that I do weeding. Occasionally you'll run across a title that says it's weeded and you're like, huh? And we have a weeding plan in place, and maybe Kristen can explain the particulars of it a little bit later. But I just wanted to say, if you run across a title that says it's weeded and you want to purchase it, just send me a note and I will unweed it. And then I'll send you a note back saying, you know, please feel free to purchase. So I just wanted to pass that on. Let's see where we are as far as this PowerPoint goes. So now I have to stop my share. And go back into my PowerPoint. So I'm not gonna, I'm just, just realize that, you can use that advanced searching for new releases. You can search by age group, by model. Kristen, maybe I should bring up, or you can talk about it in your section about just deciphering that information at the bottom of a title screen. Do you want me to bring that up now, or do you want to just do that later?
Let's do it now, because I didn't
Okay.
have a slide for it, but I can certainly talk you through it if you want to share your screen and pull it up.
Okay. So for instance, let me find something that let's go into 4 Winds.
Okay, so if you want to scroll down just a little bit, yep. So you'll see under each title, there are 2 lines of data. The top one and then the bottom one actually says Advantage. So the top line is going to represent the RCLS shared collection, so for the whole consortium, while the Advantage line, in this case, it's an aggregate of all Advantage accounts because Patty's in the consortium login. But if you're logged into your Advantage account, that Advantage line is just going to represent your local data. So your ownership information, your patrons holds information, things like that. So a little bit about what this information means. So the first one, pending here, that just means that that title is currently in a cart. So anything with a dot next to it, you can actually click on and it'll bring up a little pop-up window with some more information. So in this case, we can see specifically what cart it is currently in, who added it to that cart, when it was added, how many copies, all that good stuff. So pending just means, hey, it's already on your radar, it's in a cart. So we just let you know so you don't buy more than you intended to, right?
Right.
And then the next few sections are the ownership information. So do you already have copies of these titles? So we break these apart both by the one copy, one user lending model, as well as MA is metered access. Again, it has a dot next to it, so you can click on it and clearly see all of the titles available, when those copies were added. Since it's metered access, it is going to expire either after a certain amount of checkouts or holds. So it'll let you know when those individual ones are expiring. Yep, you can click on that. Yep, and we can clearly see what order it was added, what date, how many copies, when it expires, all that good stuff. Again, we want to provide you all that information to help make those decisions. So the ownership information, just how many copies are out there. Advantage plus shared. Now these are copies that are Advantage orders. So we can see that there's 16 copies throughout the RCLS shared collection. And then there's another 41 copies that Advantage orders have shared. Now, again, these are prioritized to your local patrons, but they are available for all of RCLS, and we make those available, as Patty mentioned, every Monday. So this just gives you an accurate picture, realistically, how many copies are actually floating out there. We also include some information if the title is available in cost per circ or simultaneous use lending model. Typically, those are going to say no. If you have any lucky day. Out represents how many copies are currently checked out. And I do want to note, hopefully everyone is aware, but when you get your holds notification that a title is available, you have 3 days to take action on that. And you have the option to either borrow the title, deliver later if you're not ready, and it'll go to the next patron on the wait list, or you can cancel your holds. Maybe you got it elsewhere while you were waiting. So the number that's reflected of out, sometimes it can be in that limbo stage where a patron received their notification, but maybe actually haven't hit the borrow yet. So this is often why sometimes libraries ask, why are there so few out if there's so many copies out there and there's holds and things like that? We don't reflect it as out until the patron actually hits that borrow button. So just wanted to clarify that. All holds represents just that, how many holds are out there. Again, the top line is going to be all of RCLS. And then if you're in your Advantage account, it'll represent just your local holds. And then also things like holds ratio, and then just overall checkouts on the title. So it's kind of nice. We provide you all of that information. So again, right from this search screen, you can make that decision. Hey, is it worth buying another copy of this title?
Kristen, I just had a question for you, because this is something, how many times can a person suspend a title? Like, is there a limit? Because frankly,
I don't think so.
frankly, I'm just saying this, and you might not like this, but I'm saying from a consortium standpoint and a CERC standpoint, that because these titles are metered and people are suspending them, we're not getting the full use of these titles. I mean, I'm wondering if we should be, if there's a way to limit, like, you know, how many titles you can suspend. I mean, I don't know if it's a thing.
So we could put in a development request, but I don't want to throw that out there because it's not an option. But I do want to note that suspending their hold, it's not waiting for that patron. It's not sitting there for 7 days. As soon as they suspend that hold, it's going to the next person. And honestly, where a lot of this came from is titles were getting automatically checked out to patrons, and they weren't actively, you know, maybe they weren't actively reading them. Maybe they were in the middle of something else. And then 14 of their 21 days, that title was not in use. Okay. So actually suspending holds is helping these metered access titles because it's always keeping them in circulation if there are patrons that don't realistically want it right now. So that's actually, suspended holds came about for metered access titles.
Okay, I like your explanation. Maybe it shouldn't be suspended then. It should be like, you know, next in line.
Yeah, maybe it's a terminology thing. But because, yeah, just to clarify, basically what it is if a patron is on a wait list, and we all know you read about a bestseller, you get on that wait list, it may be months before you actually get it. And if you're like me, my holds tend to all become available at the same time. And I might be in the middle of something else, and I don't want to lose my place in line because I do want to read this title, but maybe not today. So I have the option to deliver it later, go to someone else that maybe is ready to read it now, and then ask me again in, you know, however long I designate. Maybe it's, you know, 14 days or however long I want it. And then at that time, when the next copy becomes available, we'll ask you kind of, hey, are you ready now? So the idea is that if you're not realistically ready for it, you don't necessarily lose your place, but it could be fulfilled by someone that is actually ready for it.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. That makes me feel a little bit better.
I know sometimes you can see the suspended holds and you're like, and realistically, we will talk about this, but you don't want to necessarily fulfill titles that have suspended holds, or, you know, if there's a title, you know, this one, maybe not so much because there's a lot of holds on it, but maybe there's a title where there are no active holds. There's only 2 holds and they're both suspended. That's not worth the reinvestment because those patrons aren't actively waiting. So it is important to look at those suspended holds just to make sure, hey, are people actively waiting for it? Eventually they will probably want it, but it is a good data set just to see, take that into account when you're making some of those purchasing decisions.
I'm sorry, repeat that one more time for me.
So I was just saying it's definitely something that you should look at when you're making those purchasing decisions, just because you probably don't want to fulfill a hold if a patron isn't actively waiting on it. Maybe your budget could be better spent on active holds. So just looking at that data set as something to consider when making those purchasing decisions.
Okay. Thank you. I was going to have a little coffee break, but I just want to, I'm sorry, this is all useful information, but I wanted to share one or two other things, and then I'm going to let Kristen have some time. Sorry, Kristen, but I'm glad you're chiming in where it's necessary. I wanted to stop my share for 1 second, and Jen is going to share this with you guys in the chat, but I didn't know if this was shared with all of you guys, but this is kind of like the pandemic trends. I'm not even going to my PowerPoint that just says pandemic trends. I wanted you guys to know, because some of you might have seen this, but a lot of you probably haven't. Overall, the average percentage change for usage from 2019 to 2020 was 35% because of the pandemic. And I figured you guys should see this if you haven't. I don't know if any of you have, but it kind of gives a 2019 checkout, 2020 checkout, and the percentage change for your individual library. So like, for instance, Florida went up 39%, Have a Straw 40%. Mobile phone users, which is, a whole other, it's a lot of those people who just, don't have their library card handy. But a lot of people used it that way. That was 146% usage. So this is going to be shared. I gave it to Jen because I'm not good at sharing files, but she's going to share it in the chat so you guys can have access to it. So I just figured you should know. And then I also just the top 20 titles for the year. So I just figured that was useful information for you. And now I'm going to share my screen again. I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint, maybe. And I'm going to skip a few things because I feel like we talked about them. I'm going to skip the coffee break because we're running out of time, and I'm sure Jen has some useful things. So I wanted to say, I sent this out to the ePool and the eContent people. So this just happened. And I think I curated a list that should hopefully show up today for all adult fiction and nonfiction collection. So there's 150 no-cost simultaneous access ebooks and audiobooks that are available, including some decent titles like Nomadland, things that you could use for book discussions. And that's available to us through December 31st, 2021. And there's also a COVID response children's collection that's been available. So I just wanted you guys to know that, and it should show up soon if it's not showing up already on the Overdrive website. And I just wanted to say a little something about the magazines. So we now have this e-periodicals collection with over 3,000 titles. And the price is $30,000, which is pricey, but surprisingly, since that time I've been doing stats since December, January, and February monthly, and it is getting used by people, including some foreign language. I don't know if we're hitting people that are part of our population that we haven't hit before. But right now, if we're averaging, it's about $1 an issue if we do the 30,000. So I believe it was approved by System Services and they're recommending it to the DA. I'm not exactly sure where it is in the process, but it's something to think about, because if you look at it, you can see that. I mean, there's some obscure titles that you would think would be obscure. There's whiskey magazines and, cross stitch and everything. It really runs the gamut, but people are looking at some of those titles. Of course, the top titles are always going to be those gossip magazines or Us or whatever. But as you scroll down, there's a lot of things that people are looking at that I'm like, wow. So just something you want to think about marketing. And then I'm just going to say this just as an aside. I've been part of this panoramic project. I just follow it, but I think so it's panoramicproject.org, and one of the sponsors of it is Overdrive. But the primary goal is to establish the book's place order in media, but a secondary goal, which I find very interesting, is to ascertain the role of public libraries in discovery, consumption, and purchasing practices of those who utilize public libraries. I mean, it's hard to tell publishers the library's worth, because they just think possibly we're just the only ones that are purchasing one copy, and we're not, we don't have any say in the purchasing power of what our patrons are doing. But a lot of people, if they like the book, these are big readers, they're going to purchase their own personal copy. It's just an interesting study. This one in particular was very interesting. So I just thought it was something that you guys should take a look at. It's panoramicproject.org. And then my last little plug before Kristen gets started, I'm sorry, Kristen, is we have a big library read that's coming up April 5th through the 19th. It's The Art of Taking It Easy. Wouldn't we all love to do that? So
exactly. I'm excited about that one. We can all use that.
So I just wanted to say thank you to everybody. And I'm sorry, Kristen, but please feel free to I'm going to stop my share and whatever you want to do.
Sure, that's okay. I'm going to jump right in. I might go a little quickly, so forgive me. And again, this is relatively informal. Please ask questions. Interrupt me. I'll try to look at the chat. Otherwise, save some time at the end for any other questions. I just put some basic slides together so we can have some conversations. Some of the talking points that Patty had suggested are some strategies for reducing holds, talking about how to market the service. We have some exciting updates from Overdrive coming soon. And then if there are any other questions. So it is your meeting. If there's anything specifically you'd like to talk about, like I said, please don't hesitate to interrupt me. But I want to try to keep this within the remaining half hour or so. Okay. So just a little bit, we're talking about strategies for holds. And I'm actually going to make this a little smaller. Okay. So today's wait time is for the whole system is right around 38 days. So that's saying on average, when a user places a hold, they're going to wait about 38 days for that hold to be fulfilled. And I will say for a consortium of your size, it's actually on the lower end. I found one other system of similar size and overall budget that's about 29 days. But otherwise, consortia honestly are in the range of 45 to 60 days even. And I, came up with some of the solutions that we're gonna talk about that I think can help a little bit, but I also think it's understanding that there's not always going to be a workaround. 2020 brought a lot of new users to your digital collection that either didn't know it was an option before or kind of resorted to it when libraries were closed, but they, chances are they're going to be repeat users moving forward. So 2020 brought a lot of new users, a lot of new checkouts and growth, as Patty mentioned, and therefore a lot more holds. They're all correlated. So it really is understanding that the more usage in the service, the more buy-in that you're getting from patrons, the more you're probably going to have to invest in it. So, you know, we'll look at some strategies for reducing them. But honestly, this wait time may be the new normal if you don't want to put additional funds towards it. So it's just something to think about. But I do want to talk about some options that may help make those funds and those dollars go a little bit further. And the first one is looking at some alternative lending models like cost per circ. And we actually have a new one that's called metered access concurrent use. So as I had put in the chat before, all lending models are set by the publisher. If Overdrive had our way, we would have everything in one copy, one user, and you know, it would work like every single physical item. One patron can take out one copy at a time. But publishers know that it's a business, right? So there are a handful of publishers, and unfortunately, a lot of the big 5, big 6 that meter their content. And as Patty mentioned, that may be, you have this title, HarperCollins, for instance, you have this title for 26 uses before it expires from your collection. A lot of libraries like that lending model because they can guarantee their return on the investment. I know I'm going to get 26 checkouts before it goes away. There are some like Penguin Random House, Simon & Schuster, that meter their content for a certain amount of time. And typically that's 1 or 2 years. Now that one, not ideal. So that one, you know, it's going to expire on that date, regardless of how many uses you got. So not as favorable. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of options there. It's just the only one that that publisher may be making available. But we've since added a few other lending models that can maybe help offset some of these higher wait times or holds or things like that. And the first one I'm going to talk about is this new one. We call it metered access concurrent use. So it works a lot like HarperCollins 26 licenses. It's typically you have it for 100 checkouts. So you're purchasing a title and you know you're going to get 100 checkouts on it before it goes away. What's different about this one is you can use those 100 checkouts all at the same time. So you can have all 100 checkouts go on the first day. You could have 20 go on the first day and, you know, 23 months from then and five years from then or so on. But the nice thing is that with this lending model, you could potentially wipe out all holds on a title in one day and still have some budget left over. In looking at it, there are about 68 titles that have RCLS holds that are available in this lending model. The biggest one being Bridgerton audiobooks. You could clear out all 60 holds on Bridgerton or The Duke and I today if you wanted to buy one of these lending models.
I just want to say, I'm sorry. I did do this with one of them. I did. I forget which one of the Bridgertons I did it on. I wanted to see what happened with it. Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely some pros of this lending model is you can get those uses all at the same time. You know, if you were to add something like this, however many patrons are on hold will get their holds notification that day. It's not kind of one at a time. It could potentially completely eliminate holds on a certain title. And it's a predetermined cost per search. So, you know, say these 100 checkouts are, you know, $150 or something like that. You know, upfront how much each individual checkout costs. And every library is different, but some libraries like to look at what is their average, you know, cost per search. Some downsides of this lending model, I will admit, as I mentioned, there's only 68 titles that you currently have on hold that are available in it. So it is a brand new lending model, just made available a couple months ago. So there aren't a lot of publishers that participate in it yet. So it's kind of this endless loop of we introduce something new, libraries don't want to try it till there's better content, publishers don't want to do it until they know libraries are going to purchase it, and it's kind of this endless loop. We were like this with cost per circ a couple years ago, so we have high hopes for the future, but it's definitely maybe something to think about for a few titles, just knowing this is yet another option. Another downside is it's that metered access. So it is eventually going to go away. So some libraries want to avoid having to manage expiring content or things like that. So just something to think about. Again, as Penny mentioned, she did it for some of those Bridgerton. In my opinion, that's probably the only ones that are going to be most impactful now, where maybe you're clearing out 50, 60 holds all in one day and have some left over. But there's not a ton of other, I think Outlander's one of those, but I don't know how many holds are on those. But so something to think about.
Somebody is asking, is 100 checkout an example? Can it be a different number?
So you can't customize that. So that is set by the publisher, but it would tell you before you add it to a cart how many checkouts are included for that price. So all of these lending models, you don't really have a say in. Publishers set everything, but we do let you know ahead of time what it's available. So for example, HarperCollins, they only make their titles available for 26 uses. If you want more than 26 uses, you buy 2 copies or something like that. So yeah, you can't customize what you want, but I think by default, most of them have been 100. There might be some that are less. And that's
I haven't seen any.
Always asking publishers to consider. You know, we didn't mandate that it has to be 100. That just happened to be a lot of the publishers that participated wanted to go that route. But yeah, you would be able to see it before you buy it, how many it's available for. Cost per cert.
I'm sorry, Kristen, I just had a question. Is it mainly audiobooks?
I would say probably 80% of them are audiobooks now. Recorded books, when we were involved in the RB Digital acquisition, recorded books actually created this lending model and wanted to be able to offer it. So majority of them come from that publisher. There are ebooks available in it too. Again, the collection isn't extensive at this time because it's a brand new lending model a couple months ago, but definitely something to look into. You can do an advanced search for lending model, metered access, concurrent use, and see if there's anything that may fit your need.
Somebody was asking, if you did concurrent use, would it just be for your Advantage library? And you might want to talk about that.
Sure. So it depends where you purchase it. So let me double check really quickly on RCLS's settings for Advantage Plus to see if this lending model is included. Yeah, so right now, how RCLS has it set up is all titles are made available to the rest of the consortium on a weekly basis on Mondays. So if you were to purchase it through your Advantage account, all of your Advantage patrons' holds would get notified. And then the following Monday, anything that may be remaining would be opened up to the rest of RCLS. If you added it through the pool funds, it would be, it would fill holds across the whole consortium. And one thing that I did want to note before, when Patty was mentioning a little bit about Advantage and Advantage Plus, when she mentioned your patrons will have priority, that's over the wait list. So if you add any titles for Advantage accounts, as I mentioned, they would be restricted to your patrons only. The rest of our CLS wouldn't be able to see those copies until the following Monday. Every Monday morning, any Advantage order is opened up to the rest of the system. If there are holds on that wait list, because you're purchasing it for your local patrons, they will skip over any other RCLS patron that's not your local patron. So they'll get first dibs on that wait list, on that holds list. If it's just, there's no hold and it's just on the shelf, it's already met your patrons' needs and it's just sitting there, it's fair game for anyone in the system. Okay.
I had one other question. She wanted to know if concurrent use could be restricted to a certain amount per day.
No,
Okay.
I don't think it works that way. I think it's just you're purchasing essentially so many licenses, and automatically when you buy any titles that are on hold, it's automatically going to start that holds fulfillment process. So typically when you when you purchase titles, we say it could take up to 24 hours to populate, but on average, it's usually within 4 hours. And your patrons will automatically get their holds notification, as soon as those titles populate, because it's going to be allocated towards holds first before it just goes on the shelf for anyone. So it would work the same way with this metered access concurrent use. If you have, say you purchase, those 100 licenses and you have 10 of your patrons waiting, those 10 will get their notifications. Because there's more left, it will be on the site for anyone to just grab and use. And then that following Monday, when it's opened up, it could go to fulfill those remaining RCLS holds if there's any at the system. Okay, so 20 minutes and I'm really gonna try.
Sorry,
no, that's okay. We're having good conversations. I just want to be respectful of everyone's time. So cost per circ. So this is a growing lending model that's been really popular amongst libraries, especially in 2020. We have a lot more publishers that participate in this now than they did, 2019 and before. The biggest being Penguin Random House and Books on Tape for the audiobooks. So essentially what the cost per circ lending model allows you to do is add titles free of charge and only pay a fee if it gets checked out. Now, the nice thing about our cost per circ lending model is you do set a monthly budget in advance. So that way you're not going to get a surprise invoice for $5,000. If you say, hey, I'm willing to add a Vanishing Half or a Promised Land free of charge, only pay, maybe $2.50 if it gets checked out, but I only want to do it up until $50 or something like that. That way, at the end of the month, there's no surprise invoices. At the very most, it's only going to be $50. And then if it doesn't get used, maybe it only gets checked out a handful of times, we'll only invoice you for whatever gets checked out. So for example, you add the Vanishing Half, I think it's $2.47 a checkout. You're willing to pay up to $50 on this. It gets checked out, it circulates, maybe it only goes out 2 times that month. We're only going to send you an invoice for $5. You only pay what actually gets checked out, but that budget is kind of that safety net. So at the very most, it's going to be that. A lot of libraries have been doing this through their Advantage accounts. That way, they're only responsible for checkouts from their patrons. Cost per circ is not eligible to be shared with the rest of RCLS. So either you could add it at the pool collection and it would be for everyone in the consortium, which could be scary budget-wise.
Yeah.
Or you could do it through your Advantage account, and then you're only responsible for your local patrons. So this is a really good option for potentially reducing those holds too. Maybe something like Vanishing Half. If you have 5 patrons waiting, maybe it makes more sense to add it in cost per circ and fulfill those holds for $10, $15 than purchasing a copy of the book for $40. The difference is obviously it doesn't stay in your collection forever. It's not a more permanent copy, but using this lending model as kind of leverage, can I fulfill some of those holds less expensively? A lot of libraries have been doing a combination of this. So maybe they do purchase a 1 copy 1 user, a metered access, or they have access to those through the shared collection. And maybe they just want to add cost per circ to clear out some of those holds to get those patrons more instant fulfillment. And then you can turn off cost per circ and just go back to using the 1 or 2 more permanent copies that you have. So being
Kristen,
able to, yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, can I just ask one question? Is it per title what you decide, or is it per month on just all of the cost per circs if you were doing it?
The budget is set per month per format. So you can't designate per title. If you wanted to do it per title, we would recommend just adding 1 title at a time. But say, for example, if you added 5 ebooks, that budget would be for all 5 of those ebooks.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, but it's definitely an option to deepen your collection with less of an upfront commitment. So a lot of libraries are doing this, as I mentioned, to either fulfill holds less expensively. It's kind of a fun way to gauge interest on either a new format or language, or maybe even a genre before, again, maybe purchasing a more permanent copy. Let's gauge interest, see if it's worth the investment. And then also it's a really great tool for meeting book clubs digitally, because like metered access concurrent use, this is multi-user access. So multiple patrons can access this title at a time. For ours, there's probably over 100,000 titles available in this cost per circ lending model. Again, the publishers determine which titles they want available in which lending models. So it's not gonna meet all of your holds needs. You can't go on and say, hey, let's make every single title a cost per circ or something like that. There are publishers that don't participate, but there are a lot of opportunities here. So in taking a look, there's over 1,900 titles that RCLS has a hold on that's available in cost per circ. So for example, you can completely clear out your holds list for the vanishing half for $135. So just something to think about. Again,
Kristen,
not
can
for
I ask?
everyone, you know, it's hang on one second. It's the opportunity that you can pick which lending model is going to work best for your budget. Go ahead, Patty.
Can I ask a question? If they are doing a cost per circ, and I think this was an issue that came up at the start, does this show up in the consortia collection if they're doing those cost per circs and they're not?
Not if they don't have another copy of the title. If you're adding a title that you don't already own at the advantage level, other patrons will not see that. If you already have a 1 copy or metered access, that has already been shared with RCLS. Patrons will see potentially that a copy is available, but then if it's not available to them, if it's not one of your local patrons, they'll be prompted to place a hold on it instead, just because cost per circ at advantage is limited to only your local patrons. But again, that is only if you already have the title shared in another lending model.
Okay.
Okay, really trying to move forward. So
it's all
no, that's okay. I want it to be helpful and that you guys to get the most out of it, but I want to cover some other topics. Simultaneous use. So I just want to let you know that it's out there. Patty already kind of touched base on that free COVID collection. So that's something that, and I put it in the chat, it is live on the RCLS site. The collection is live now. Great opportunity, definitely something to promote and think about. Good book club ideas like Nomadland, but also those automatically cleared out some holds for you. So there weren't a ton of titles that already had holds, but Nomadland for sure. As soon as we added that donation free of charge, it cleared it out for everyone. So there are some opportunities, and maybe it's more of a pool question. Simultaneous use is available both at the consortium or advantage, but you definitely get more bang for your buck at the consortium level, just because it is truly how simultaneous use works is it's a package of titles from a publisher available in kind of an annual subscription, but you have unlimited access to those. So no holds, no wait lists, unlimited copies. So typically you get more bang for your buck by doing something like that at the shared collection level, because it would be unlimited for all of RCLS, but we do have those packages available at the advantage level where it would just be unlimited for your local patrons. Okay. One other thing that I do want to mention too, a little bit about holds and kind of some good strategies for maintaining those is shopping our sales. We have sales going on at any single time in the month. We're featuring a lot of our we have a murder mystery mayhem sale going on right now. In April, I think is usually our juvenile content we'll have on sale, so children's titles. May will feature young adult. June in particular is audiobook month. That is one of our biggest sales of the year. It's all June long, and we have audiobooks up to 50% off. Audiobooks tend to be more expensive. June is a great time to fulfill holds on audiobooks. And then we've showcased some other of our sales going on, but always a really good opportunity is to look at fulfilling holds with titles on sale. And that's always a link that we include in our sale is holds. So can we get more bang for our buck? Talking a little bit more about holds. Is taking a look at holds manager plans. So I know the system has some of these set up. You can do it for your Advantage account as well. Essentially what this does is rather than digging through the current holds report, you can set some criteria like ratio or format or things like that, budget, based on what you're trying to fulfill. You know, remind me every time at least 3 of my patrons have a hold on a title or something like that. And we will automatically run that for you on a regular basis and create a cart for you to use. So just taking a look at, for those that may already have holds managers in place, and this is for the system too, does it still work? Check in with those plans, see if realistically, you know, those ratios are still up to par. You know, we encourage, everyone wants to be at a 5-to-1 ratio, you know, 5 patrons for every copy available. But that's not really realistic anymore. So taking a look at those holds managers and doing a little audit. You can adjust existing plans or create new ones based on the needs of your, based as the needs of your libraries grow and change. But consider adapting a variable price-based holds ratio. So use this to evaluate buying extra copies to meet demand. So for instance, you know, maybe cheaper titles, I'm willing to fulfill those at a lower ratio because I can afford more copies of those. Or maybe, you know, titles that are $50 to $75, maybe I want to put those at a higher ratio because they're more expensive. So you can set up multiple holds manager plans for different formats and budgets and ratios. So just taking a look at some of those, seeing if it makes sense. And then also reviewing your holds managers as soon as those carts are created. Make sure those days still make sense for you, because the more that those holds are sitting, we know people are getting their holds fulfilled on a daily basis as patrons return titles and go back. So definitely something to think about there. You know, does it still make sense? Another thing that I want to recommend you look at when looking at the current holds report, and we talked about this a little bit, is not only just the number of holds. So not only, you know, looking at all titles that have 5 or more holds or things like that, but also look at the first active hold. And I know this came up in the chat too. So RCLS actually has hundreds of holds from 2019. And those are impacting your wait times. So the current average waiting period takes a couple things into account. So we're not going to include pre-orders because there's nothing you can do about it. It's not the title street date yet. We're not going to include titles that are no longer available for sale because you can't buy any extra copies of those. We're not going to include those suspended holds because patrons aren't actually waiting for them, right? And then we're also not going to consider holds if the patron hasn't been active in 90 days. So that's saying these patrons placed a hold in 2019 and haven't come back since, or something like that. We're not going to factor that into your current average wait time, because realistically, if they haven't been around in 90 days, they may not actually be waiting for this title, right? So we automatically exclude those. But as I mentioned, your current wait time is 38 days. And I know that's been something that Grace has really harped on bringing down. So the biggest thing that I want to talk about is looking at some of those oldest holds. Maybe there's only 1 or 2 holds on a title, so it's not getting triggered by your holds manager or how you're sorting, you know, based on the number of holds. But if those patrons are still active and interacting with other titles, that's still impacting your wait time. So there
Can I
are,
just, hold on, can I just add one thing? I can't order every with one hold hanging. I'm just saying that. So I think they're
oh, I
using.
know, Patty, I have
Yeah.
a few other things that I want to talk about.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I know that's not realistic that you want to do that. So my recommendation, if you're not going to reorder the title, cancel the hold. That's what it comes down to. And it comes down to this expired metered access as well. So as I mentioned, you know, there are titles that expire from your collection. And I think Patty Kennedy brought this up. She said, there are some titles that I'm seeing from 2019 that there are no copies in an RCLS or Advantage account. Again, if that patron is still active, that's contributing to it. And Patty and Jerry and team have been great about weeding some of those titles that are expired. However, weeding titles does not automatically cancel holds. And those holds on a weeded title could still be impacting your wait time. Okay, so there are 451 holds on 344 titles in this case. There are 344 titles that are weeded that still have a hold. And that, if that patron is still active, that can be impacting that. So I want either this group or take it back to another committee, have a discussion on how we want to handle those. Personally, I recommend, and we know that you cannot repurchase everything. If you're realistically not going to reorder the title though, and especially if you're weeding them, cancel those holds. Especially 2019, let's be honest, are those patrons still waiting for those titles? They might have went out and bought it from Amazon or, you know, got it somewhere else. So every library is different. Again, I want to emphasize that there is no one size fits all. We can make some recommendations, but every system is different in their policies. So I think it's part of a bigger conversation that either this group or another group within RCLS, maybe a director's meeting, has to have a conversation on how you want to handle these. But I do think that these expired metered access titles, and in particular, some that are weeded, are probably impacting your wait times. And if we want to go through and say, hey, let's cancel all titles before, you know, all pending holds on unavailable titles before 2020 or something like that, I think it's going to bring down your wait time.
Can I ask a question? Eileen asked, why are we weeding things with holds on it? And I think that it's because we can't. I don't know when the last time Jerry sent out a report about weeded titles, but there was a time when, you know, I can't purchase everything that's expired with a hold on it. So, you know, it was a decision of whether you as your library wants to purchase that copy for, you know, your patron who's got it, who's waiting for it, or it gets expired. I want to ask Kristen, if we want to cancel these holds, does it have to be done individually? Please say no.
You can send it to us. You can just let us know and Overdrive will do it for you.
Oh, great.
Yeah, technically through, and I think someone else had mentioned it, under the support tab, there is a manage holds tool where you can cancel your patrons' holds. But if we're considering doing something where it's a bulk cancel or potentially canceling hundreds of holds, just send those over to Overdrive and we'll take care of it on the back end.
I don't know. I mean, I want to recommend, if anybody has a problem with this, I feel like I want to recommend to System Services for their next meeting, because I don't know if we have the power to, but we definitely need to clean this up.
Yeah, I think it's worth a conversation. And I think if the
Absolutely.
goal is to bring down wait time, this is something that we have to think about and how we want to handle it moving forward. Just because, you know, when we were talking 5 years ago, it wasn't as much as a problem. And now we have, especially after 2020, significant more usage in here. If it is something, if wait time is something that we as a group want to lower or get in a more manageable position, this is something that we should talk about and see if it's how we want to handle it going forward.
Eileen had a question about if the patron gets informed, and I don't believe they do. If
Not at this time, no. So there isn't, Overdrive does not have a way to contact patrons.
I just want to say, Eileen, that if, I mean, you know how a hold is good for 1 year for Cersei Dynex, they don't get notified either if it's over a year. So Jerry had mentioned that at a meeting. So,
yeah,
I mean, I have
something that we've put requests into Overdrive, but Overdrive does not have that customization to say everything after a year is canceled. So that might be something some libraries say, hey, we know, just for the sake of consistency across physical and digital, we want to say anything over a year is, we're going to cancel or something like that. Again, it's a conversation to have within the group on, how you want that to manage, but there's nothing stopping that on Overdrive side. There's nothing automated that says a hold can't be a year older. So maybe that's something to think about too. Do we want to say, hey, if you're waiting longer than a year, we're probably going to cancel your hold or something like that. So I don't know. It's just, again, there's no right or wrong answer. We have libraries that do it all across the board, but it's definitely something to think about.
If a title is very, Eileen, if a title is very popular, can somebody wait? But the whole thing is that if it's a popular title,
you're probably reordering
there's probably copies of it. You know what I'm saying?
There's probably copies of it, or you're going to reorder it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think by default, and most of these titles, there aren't WITA titles that have, 5 holds on them. I think for the most part, in terms of Patty and team that are reordering, they have to put a threshold somewhere. Maybe if it's only 1 or 2 holds, maybe they can't afford to reorder it, or if it's 3 or more, they're doing it automatically. Every library is different, but it's having those collection development conversations and seeing what's going to work best for RCLS budget.
Jen, if you're still on, I'm trying to figure out, should we meet just separately, or can we make the recommendation to system services through this committee? If anybody wants to discuss this further, email me. I feel like we need to have some kind of conversation or just make a decision or a recommendation on this. If you guys think we should meet about it and talk about this.
Probably a separate conversation, but something to, maybe get on the next meeting agenda, whether it's for this group or a director's meeting.
It would be a recommendation that we would make to them.
I would recommend that, considering not everyone is on this call who may want to voice their opinions, that be a completely separate meeting.
Okay.
Send an email out to the listserv.
Okay.
Okay. So it is 11:30. I have more things to talk about if you want to. I don't want to hold people up though. So I want to give the opportunity first and foremost to see if there are any questions. And then I do have some information about marketing the service, as well as some updates to Overdrive. I could quickly do both of those, one or the other. It's your meeting and I don't want to hold anyone up. So let me know what you want to talk about.
I say useful stuff, keep going. I don't know if anybody, there are some people that have left because they have other things to do.
Yeah.
It's being recorded. So I would appreciate if you could.
Sure, absolutely. I have the time. Okay, I'm gonna check real quick.
Kristen, it's Lori. I have a quick question. You were referring to if people are inactive for 90 days. When you say inactive, do you mean not engaging with the app or on the website while logged in? How are you tracking that to sort of, push them out? I mean, we want them to come back in. If they're inactive, we want them to become active.
We do. Inactive is just, we're saying, and this is only in terms of how we factor the current average waiting period. So we're saying if a patron places a hold and then hasn't interacted, so they haven't placed another hold, they haven't borrowed a title, they haven't done anything else in 3 months, we're not going to consider that hold as part of the current average waiting time. Honestly, it's in your library's favor. That's just saying that potentially they're not actively waiting for it. So we're not going to include that when we're averaging the wait time for you. Of course, if they come back, we want them to engage. It's only when we're calculating that current average wait time, we're saying if a patron has not done anything, placed a hold, borrowed a title, etc., in 3 months, we won't consider that in the average waiting period.
Okay, so it's just for statistics because,
Yes. Yes.
well, first of all, I hope no one waits 90 days, especially if it's their first interaction. We need to fill that so that we capture the customer. But I'm glad to have you clarify that it's just for statistical purposes.
It's
so
just
thank
for
you.
calculating that average waiting period. And it's just in the library's favor saying, you know, obviously we hope that's never the case, but that's just saying if that did happen for someone, we're not going to hold it against you for the current average waiting period.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so I'm going to keep going. We're going to move on from holds, and I want to talk a little bit about marketing the service. So having some tips, and then I have some exciting overdrive updates as well. So let me make this smaller again. Okay, so I want to start off by saying the Overdrive Resource Center is your friend. This is resources.overdrive.com. There is a link to it through your marketplace account under the support tab as well. But we find out a lot of libraries actually don't know about this. And I cannot emphasize how fantastic this truly is. Again, resources.overdrive.com. It does not require a login, so anyone on your staff can access it. But this is the portal for free marketing and outreach materials, which we're going to talk about a little bit, staff training. So all of our on-demand webinars, from how to run a report, how to purchase a title, you know, how to borrow a title in Libby, everything you can think of. Quick how-to videos available here. We have collection development lists. We have just kind of FAQs about, you know, what does Advantage Plus mean and things like that. But our marketing resources here are fantastic. So I really want to emphasize here, please, 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 if you haven't yet, go to the Resource Center. It's going to have more than you can ever imagine. So the first thing I want to talk about is your library website. So it's time for everyone to do a little audit of your library website and make sure that your information is up to speed. For first and foremost, and I will admit, I may or may not have taken this screenshot from a member library of RCLS. Does it say Overdrive Media Console anywhere on your site? Or does it have a picture of an iPod? It's time to update it. Overdrive hasn't been referred to as Overdrive Media Console, I think in like 7+ years. So if you're directing patrons to that, they're not going to find that anywhere in an app store. They're not going to find that terminology anywhere on a website. It's time for some new graphics. It's time for some new links. So a clear, concise, and accurate representation of your digital resources. It's going to attract new users. It's going to showcase the value and diversity of your collection. And it's also going to reduce the amount of staff time spent answering questions. Guarantee that someone that has that, you're going to get a question, I can't find the Overdrive Media Console anywhere. That's because it's not a thing. Make sure that you're featuring Libby or even the Overdrive app, updated links to your carousels. I think this is the biggest issue that libraries have, is that their graphics on their direct library website are extremely out of date. So you want to lead with a pertinent reminder on the website too, that your digital collection never closes. So this has been huge in 2020 with library closures, but also let's think about maintenance and bank holidays and things like that. Noting that the digital collection is open 24/7 is a huge feature. So unlimited amount of graphics in that resource center, specifically noting, you know, updated messaging. There's actually a full webinar about, you know, doing a little audit of your site and making sure that it's up to date. But the biggest thing is looking at your library website and making sure that you don't have outdated materials there. So here is actually a quick checklist on some things you could do on your library website. So if you work with multiple digital services vendors, which every library probably does, right? A long list of your providers to choose from can be really confusing for first-time visitors. So we recommend maybe sorting your digital services either by popularity or maybe by promoting key features that make it less of a guessing game for your patrons. A lot of libraries, what they might do is sort it by format. They may say, go here for ebooks, go here for audiobooks, go here for videos, things like that. But we know you have the canopies and hooplas and databases and EBSCO and everything else. So making it visually appealing and not so overwhelming to your patrons is really key for your library website. Also providing an easy way to download the Libby app as a primary path for users. So whether that's including a hyperlink on a graphic of a Libby logo or an Overdrive logo, or any of our promotional graphics that are available, and then sending to the website, whether it's your rcls.overdrive.com, whether it's to, you know, an app store for Libby or something like that, but making sure that those graphics redirect patrons somewhere, that you're putting them back to the Overdrive site or you're putting them to Libby directly is huge for patrons and especially first-time users. You could also add a QR code. I wasn't crazy about QR codes for a long time, and I feel like they've just kind of revamped in the last year or so, but they're actually really easy to use. So you could always add a QR code for users with smart devices so they can scan it, and then easily it'll open up the Libby app for download on their device or things like that. That might be a good option for maybe putting in your physical branch. I haven't seen a ton of QR codes on websites just because they may already be on a portable device. So maybe the hyperlink's a better option, but definitely something to think about. Are there any of these terms on your website? Does it say Overdrive Media Console? Does it say WMA or WMV, which are Windows something audiobooks or videos? Anyways, it's a format that doesn't exist anymore. Does it say MediPocket or Palm Pilot or things like that? I cannot tell you how many libraries have really outdated devices, terminology, things like that. And we understand, you put it on your library website, you know, when you started with Overdrive in 2006, and maybe it's never been updated since then, but it's definitely time for an audit, especially given the last year and the direction and more users that are coming into your digital collection. You want to make sure that it's going in the right place.
I just want to say you'd be surprised what people come in with. I
know. Oh, and I understand. There are definitely still MP3 users and things like that. But I think majority of them, you know, if you're featuring the service as something to use with a Palm Pilot or BlackBerry or something like that, patrons may see that and say, oh, that service isn't for me because those devices are ancient or something like that. So you could definitely include both, but take a look and see if, hey, does it really make sense anymore? Because of the improvements of the borrowing process, any instructions that you may have for side loading or Adobe digital editions, burning audiobooks to CDs, things like that, those aren't required for first-time users anymore. So it's definitely time, you know, just take a look and see, hey, do these instructions, do these cheat sheets, etc., still make sense? Is anyone still using these? And that's another thing. If you have a device cheat sheet or any kind of instructional documents about Overdrive posted on your website from previous years, we recommend updating those links to either Libby FAQs or the Overdrive help page, just because those articles are refreshed much more regularly and checked for accuracy. So we would rather you, link back to us than maybe using something that's a little bit out of date, just because as features roll out or as things updated, those links are automatically refreshed. So that way it's a little less reoccurring maintenance for you. Quick chat. Thank you. Windows Media Audiobook and Video. I couldn't remember them. Okay. So just taking a look at some of that, your website, does it still make sense? And being that it is an online service, you definitely want to be promoting it online. So these are just a couple examples of the awesome graphics that we're updating, and the Resource Center is updated bi-monthly. So every couple of weeks, we're refreshing with new timely things. We have some spring things now. We have a lot of stuff for Women's History Month, but also, being 2020, mental health things, and just, that you're not alone and things like that. And then of course, always that your digital collection is always open. So I'm gonna quickly go through, this was actually one of our presentations that our marketing team did that I thought was just super valuable, especially for maybe first time people managing their Overdrive collection. Being an online service, social media is one of the quickest ways to showcase your digital collection. And most libraries have a Facebook page or Twitter, or even now some are doing Instagram and things like that. So these are just some quick 10 tips on how to kind of show off your digital collection on Overdrive. And you can, of course, apply this to other online services or other things your library's doing. But I thought they were kind of fun. So the first one is trying Instagram stories. So we know that teens are one of the most difficult audiences to target. You don't want to seem like you're trying too hard to be cool and you're really trying to appeal to them. And Instagram is one of the best platforms for teenagers. So with Instagram stories, these live at the top of your profile. They're typically about 30 seconds long, but they don't have to be. You can add multiple stories for a longer clip. They do disappear after 24 hours. However, you can maintain your story by saving it as a highlight, and that'll be at the top of your profile. It's really great for any programming or events that you're doing. And you can also highlight it as that event's name. So they'll see it at the top above your pictures. It's also a really fun way to share book recommendations. Within Libby, you can actually download jacket covers to post on your Instagram stories. And it's a really easy way to kind of engage with users. Within the Resource Center, we do have, we took actually some of our Libby how-to videos and formatted them for Instagram stories. So if you want to share, this is how you borrow a book in Libby or something like that, the formatting for Instagram is really just changing the size so it's more vertical like a phone. But it's a really great platform to kind of get in front of those younger readers on a platform that you're used to. And then also social media allows you to be a little bit more fun. You could put, those little like GIFs or GIFs, everyone pronounces it differently, or stickers or emojis or things like that. So just as a way to kind of engage with different users. Another one is hashtags. So hashtags, basically the purpose of that is to help your posts become more discoverable. So you could go to a website like all-hashtags.com or tagfinder.com, and you can find relevant hashtags that can correspond with your post. It's actually recommended that you don't make up your own, because they don't actually lead anywhere. So of course you could do ones with your library or things like that, but holidays and notable events are always really good trending hashtags. And usually on Twitter, it features all of the trending hashtags. So you can always look there and kind of tie it in. Hashtag library love or hashtag Libby app are always good ones to use. And we actually received a tip recently that you should capitalize the first letter of each word in your hashtag. And that's because it actually helps those that are visually impaired that may be using screen readers. It helps them identify the words correctly and therefore pronounce them correctly. So that was kind of a tip that was shared with us that I thought was really meaningful because I didn't think of something like that. So in the Resource Center, we have a section under the social tab called Share These Now. And they're all seasonal or timely graphics. And then you can just put hashtags on them. Some put your library name, or again, the more trending of hashtags you use, the more it's going to get discoverable. So it's going to get discovered by people that don't just already follow your Twitter or Instagram or things like that. So really hashtags are used for discoverability to reach new people that maybe don't follow the library already. This example here, this library did a really good example of promoting both their physical and digital marketing on their Instagram. So they took a hardback and they put a sticker on it that says also available in ebook. And they put a caption and they put some hashtags like, as I mentioned, Library Love or Libby app. But that was kind of a cool way to meet both of them, you know. The Virgin River series is on Netflix now. Robin Carr's always popular. So that might be a good option to say, hey, both physical and digital, we have this title and let's get it circulating. So planning ahead. So you can actually schedule posts in advance. You want to make sure that you're posting consistently, especially on nights and weekends when you might not be at your desk working. Those are prime social media hours. So you can actually schedule posts in advance. There are a lot of services that can help with this. I think Hootsuite is one of them. But here are some examples of upcoming graphics that you can schedule in advance. So Star Wars Day on May 4th, or we kind of already passed the first day of spring, but maybe you want to do Earth Day or recycling. These are also really helpful for newsletters too, both print or electronic. Looking at some of those graphics and not just thinking of today, but maybe what's coming in the month to come, and you can schedule those in case you forget. So let your announcements serve double duty. So we talk about, you guys are getting bad weather today, you know, maybe there's power outages or libraries closed. I'm based in Cleveland, Ohio, so we know all about those snow drifts that come in, or let's just talk about 2020 in general, right? So we have really great graphics that you can use to tout the availability of your digital collection. So it's always great to post on, you know, I mentioned before, upcoming bank holidays or library closures, but also for the unexpected events, you know, coronavirus, the pandemic, snow, power outages, maintenance, things when you aren't expecting the library to maybe be closed or reduce hours. Not only are you posting saying, unfortunately, the library is closed today, but also use a graphic that says, but Libby's open 24/7. And it's, you know, you can access books in the middle of the night, things like that. One thing that I thought was really interesting, someone recommended, not pandemic related, but it might be fun to schedule some of these, you know, always available 24/7 posts for the middle of the night, you know, 2 a.m. when maybe those new moms and dads might be up with little ones and scrolling through social media. They may say, oh, I could borrow a book from the library and be listening to an audiobook now or something like that. So kind of using it as, yes, we're messaging about a library closure, reduced hours or something like that, but also including a graphic, hey, there's still other resources available for you. Tip number 5 is expanding your readership. So when we think of Libby, we often think of people that are already readers, which is great. And they may, being that they're already readers, print readers, traditional readers, they may probably naturally find Libby and find it appealing to them. And that's great. But what's really great about digital is you might have the opportunity to inspire non-traditional readers, people that don't know that they're readers yet. We have this really great graphic series on the suggested marketing themes, again, under the social tab of the Resource Center. It's called Engaging New Readers. And that's exactly what this kit's goal is, engaging new readers. We use pop culture, things people like, yoga, football, Twitch and video games, whatever it may be. And it lends itself to the fact that highlighting something that maybe a non-traditional reader knows about, and then pointing them to Libby to find like-minded things. There's books for everything, right? And you have a wide collection of different things. So if you like yoga, why not try this book about yoga and meditation? You're on Twitch, why not read this book about Fortnite or video games? It's an opportunity for you to attract users who, A, may not be coming into your physical branch, but that doesn't mean they're not a reader yet. It means that they just might not, be one yet. Maybe they haven't found something that interests them. So why not use things like this to engage with people and attract them to that digital collection? This is also really great because you guys use that instant digital card. So maybe they're not even library card holders. You can market this, direct them back to the RCLS collection, and on top of it, they can get an instant library card. So that's a really great tool just to think about, hey, how can we reach the people beyond who's already our library patrons? Tip number 6, getting things moving. So we all know that we purchased a ton of copies of Girl on the Train back in 2015 or so. This is taking that concept, the concept of previously popular titles that you may have a lot of copies of just sitting there, and putting them back in the spotlight. So put them in the hands of the readers that maybe never read it the first time because the wait list was too long and then they forgot about it. Or maybe they haven't heard of the title at all. Promoting your backlist is a series featured on the Resource Center, and it highlights some of those titles that most likely you have a lot of extra copies sitting in your collection. There are those one copy, one user that don't expire and you have, and maybe they just need some extra love. So we've put a whole series of marketing graphics together of some of those backlist titles that maybe you want to get circulating again. So helping users get more out of Sora. So I really love these graphics. Again, I cannot recommend the Resource Center enough, but under the social tab is this suggested marketing themes section. And we have a whole series on Did You Know? And it highlights known and lesser known features in Libby. It ensures your readers are getting the most out of apps. But it could also serve double duty if you're posting graphics online because they're bright, they're engaging, they're usually minimal words, and you can just copy and paste the image. It might attract those non-traditional readers because they didn't know things like multilingual support or dyslexic font, or that you can return a title early, or there's no late fees with digital or something like that. But it's giving the presence to say, I should try this out. Maybe, why haven't I done this yet? It's capturing both those non-traditional readers that may have not tried Libby yet, but also those Libby users that may just not be using it to its full potential. As we all know, we got an influx of new users last year, right? You have a lot of patrons that tried Overdrive for the first time when the library was closed. And maybe they figured out the basics of the app. They know how to find, borrow, even read a title. But maybe they didn't know about, these features can help them become more super users and get more out of the app. Maybe they didn't know that they could increase the font size to large font or adjust the narration speed. Some of those features really take the experience to the next level. So these graphics are kind of showcasing some of those features. Did you know Overdrive doesn't have late fees? Or did you know you can do this? So this is a really cool section of graphics that you can use. Save time with the spotlight. Now, I will say, if you take anything out of this, it's this tip right here. So on the Resource Center, we have a social spotlight under the trending tab. And it allows you to quickly grab, download the graphic, copy and paste it into Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever. And we've also included context for you. It's literally copy and pasting. You can do it in less than a minute. We've crafted images and copy for you to begin posting immediately. And we think about things like the hashtag and directing patrons to the right places for you. It's literally a no-brainer, and it could be done immediately. I'm going to share my screen in a second, and we can look at some of these things in the Resource Center. But we update these, as I mentioned, I think twice a month. And literally, even if that's how often you're posting about Overdrive, post it twice a month, download the picture that we have, copy the context that we have, done.
Kristen,
So yeah,
I'm going to say that I have to get off at 12. So there's not a lot. I'm just letting you know that
I'm sorry. I'm gonna I'm just real quickly, and then
yes, I apologize.
Be on the lookout, Patty, for an email hopefully next week with some exciting Overdrive updates coming.
Oh, okay. Okay, great. And I'll be happy to share them. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I know we went way over time. Really quickly, I just want to say the last 2 points. If you've been part of our webinars in the past, we always emphasize that how important targeted marketing is. And we all know that marketing is a lot more effective when it's personalized. When something calls out to me and my interest, I'm much more likely to be drawn to it, to interact with it, to engage with it. You get the idea. So every month we spotlight a different subset of users. So this month we have graphics for professionals. In some of these examples on here, we've showcased mothers or multitaskers, those looking to advance their careers, maybe targeting parents with kids on an iPad, no worry about screen time, we're just reading mom. In the past, we've done Gen X, millennials, older adults, things like that. Again, on the Resource Center under the trending tab, it's just called Engage Your Community. And we have a new targeted group every month. And the last tip is to keep the conversation going. So engagement with your social media posts is really important, because the more engagement there is in your posts, the more likes, the more comments, it really leans into the algorithms of social media. So the more likely it's going to be that your post is discoverable to more users on the platform. So we have a lot of great examples of posts that spark engagement. It might just be as simple as, what are you reading? We have a featured kit that's called Social Showdown under the trending tab. And it's everything from beloved literary discussions to the battle of ebook versus audiobook, right? There's no wrong answer. Opinion is opinion. And we don't want to spark fights in your comment sections, but it also really encourages readership and the sense of community. And it builds that connection with your readers, especially now more than ever when we're all kind of remote. And that's part of the big fun thing of social media, is sparking that engagement. I don't know if Patty's still on, but I am. Overdrive updates just this one. Stay on for 1 minute. So really quickly, this one, I'm so excited. So we have some updates coming to Libby potentially as soon as next week. So there'll be an announcement about it, but the biggest one.
Yay!
Finally happening. Users with Overdrive wish lists will be prompted with an in-app notification to sync those into the Libby app. So we're so excited. This has been one of our biggest holdouts on patrons not trying Libby. It's just that they've built wish lists over, the last 10 years, and they don't want to lose those. So we're really excited that we're finally able to bring those wish lists into the Libby app. If users dismiss the notification without acting on it, so they'll be prompted the first time. If they do it, they can always sync them later. Wish list syncing will work in both directions, to and from Overdrive sites. Newly tagged titles will be added back to the Overdrive app as well as to Libby. Syncing from Overdrive to Libby, or syncing from Libby to Overdrive will happen in the matter of seconds, but I think syncing from Overdrive to Libby happens every like 10 hours or something like that. That's subject to change, but the big thing is potentially as soon as next week, patrons that try Libby, and we'll have plenty of marketing materials and things, will be prompted within the Libby app. Do you want to sync your wish list from Overdrive? Otherwise, after the fact, they can just synchronize their shelf and kind of go from there.
Can I ask a question? Can we see wish lists through report?
I don't believe so, no. That's just for patron privacy.
So, I mean, you know, that's one of the things that I think I found out at a digital palooza is like, so those title recommendations is basically coming from Overdrive. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I was told.
So patrons have to manually recommend that they want their library to purchase that title.
Yes, and I think at the one I was at, they said that you couldn't like do that through Libby. Is that correct still?
That is correct. So that one's not this release. You're taking my thunder away. I was really excited.
I'm sorry,
Patty. I'm just kidding. Sorry. No, that's okay. That the recommendations is not in Libby yet. Hopefully that's the next one, which potentially could be a couple months from now.
Okay.
But yeah, so wish list was first. But wish lists are basically patrons for years have been able to make lists of maybe things they want to read, have already read, things like that. I have some colleagues that have hundreds, if not thousands. They just read reviews and say, hey, I want to make a reminder that at some point I'd like to read this title, things like that. So we have countless patrons that have been building these for years that haven't been able to see those through the Libby app. So a lot of the feedback that we got is, I didn't want to try Libby yet because, you know, these lists weren't here. Separate from recommendations, wish lists are just basically tags that patrons have created on things they'd like to read, not necessarily, you know, encouraging the library to buy it. These are things that maybe the library already owns.
Okay.
You just want to read. So this is more of a patron update, but still potentially brings a lot of patrons over that haven't tried Libby yet. Another one that we're really excited about is we're calling it Notify Me. So users will be able to set up a smart tag to notify them when a new issue of a magazine becomes available. So they'll be prompted to create a Notify Me. If they go to borrow or return a magazine, they would get a little update. Hey, do you want to be reminded when new issues become available? So that's kind of exciting. And then moving forward, we're going to have this option for things like authors or titles or series. So maybe when a new series is added, hey, I want to be notified of that. So kind of taking some of those fun things of Goodreads or some other tracking things and bringing them over into the Overdrive collection. And then the last one, for anyone that may have multiple library cards, so maybe you have an NYPL card and your local library card, or maybe you have a summer house elsewhere or things like that. So if you have multiple library cards, we are taking the early steps towards multi-library searching. So if you have multiple saved cards, as I mentioned, I'm based in Cleveland, Ohio, so we can have a city card and a county card. I'm often toggling back and forth, seeing where a title might be available. So we're taking steps to be able to search across all of your saved cards. Potentially, if we get into reciprocal lending with some other libraries, this will be a great feature for that as well. But you'll be able to tap on your library card next to a title to see, and this is part of the update, we'll include it next to the title, to see if the title might be available at any of your other libraries. And then you'll also be able to more easily switch between the libraries when you're searching for a title to see, you know, which has availability, which has a shorter wait list, things like that. So pretty exciting things, some long-standing things that we've been waiting on for a while. But like I said, it could be as soon as next week. We will send an update. I do want to put one thing in the chat real quick. If no one has done it yet, we recommend that you opt into our email notifications. This is how we tell you about the exciting updates coming to Overdrive or Marketplace or things like that. The URL is pub.e.overdrive.com/sign-up. And you can customize the type of email notifications that you want to get. You know, tell me about sales or promotions, or tell me about, you know, library site updates or things like that. You can kind of customize what type of notifications you want, but just the biggest thing is we don't want you to miss any of this cool stuff. So that's it. I'm done. It's way over time and I appreciate everyone's patience. If you need anything else, my contact information is under the support tab in Marketplace, my email and my direct extension. I went quickly, so please let me know if there's any outstanding information. I appreciate the time this morning. And let me know how I can help.
Thank you so much, Kristen. I thought that was a lot of useful information. So
Good.
Yes,
It was a
and I've
lot, so hopefully it wasn't too overwhelming.
No, thank you. I've captured all of the links and information that was shared, and so I'll send that email out in just a little bit. I'm going to stop recording.